at this point, I was smoking like 3 times a day. I kind of
Yeah.
used drugs and alcohol as this coping, and partying, the party
Mm.
life, that it was just like constant. You go to sleep, you get ready again, and we, back in the clubs. And
Yeah.
I use that as a coping mechanism to just kind of
Numb it.
numb it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so from there, like I said, I had scheduled the abortion. And I went to stay with the female that I was, entertaining at this time. And, it's so crazy how God works miraculously. He's just such a good God. Like I said, I mentioned I didn't have to get an ultrasound. And so I come to the abortion clinic again. It's that same just eerie feeling when you pull up into the parking lot. And I remember just sitting there, and one of my biggest regrets of the first time that I had gotten an abortion was not getting an ultrasound picture of the baby. So
Mm.
they gave me an ultrasound. I saw it, and my heart just kind of sank because I've always wanted lots of children, a family, a husband, and kids. I love children, and it was just like heart wrenching that I could do this.
Mm.
And so when I was at the abortion clinic, literally she's handing me the pills. I have the pills in my hand, about to take the pills. And she asked me this question. She says, "Are you having any cramping?" And I was not experiencing any cramping, anything like that. And I said, yes. For some
Mm.
reason, I said yes. And from there, she took me to the ultrasound room. And that's when I found out. She said, "Oh, there's two in there. You're having twins."
Wow.
And my heart immediately sank because it was like purpose and destiny. Like God just met me in that room. Like he said, he like just smacked me the most loving smack across the face. Like because it put me in my shoes, like, you're a twin, and he put twins in your womb. Like, you need
Mm.
to wake up, Kaylin. And I remember just breaking out in tears, just absolutely crying. And she, was like, "Do you want to think this over?" And so she sent me into this room, and I was just crying, and I was making phone calls. I was in this room for about almost 2 hours, in
Mm.
this room, talking with my sister, talking to my friend group, talking to the girl that I was entertaining. And I'm going back and forth with them, and I'm like, they're twins. Like, they're twins inside. And I unfortunately had made up in my mind that no, I'm not going through with this. And I remember the nurse came in, and she was like, have you made your decision? And I was like, yeah, like, I'm not going through with this. And she said, "I think you should call your mom, sweetie. Like, you should really call your mom." And that was the last thing I wanted to hear, like, "Call your mom." And I was like, "No, like, it's okay." And she's like, she was pressing it. And I say she was an angel because, she just kept saying, "Call your mom." And so I said, "Okay, I'll call her." As soon as she leaves out the room, I'm like, "I'm not calling my mom. Like, that is absolutely not what I'm going to do." And so I end up calling my older brother, and he just so happened to be with my mom. They were at a dentist appointment. And so I told him what was going on, and I was like, crying to him. And he said, "Kaylin, like, I think you should call, like, mom. I think she would be more understanding than you think." And so I was like, okay. So I hung up from him, and I took a deep breath, and I was like, okay. I just called her, and I'm just crying. I said, "Mom, I'm pregnant with twins." And she was like, I was like, "I'm at the abortion clinic." And she's like, "Why don't you come home? We'll talk about it, and we'll pray about it."
Mm.
And it was almost like those words were just so comforting to me at that moment, because I thought she was just going to start screaming at me, which is not at all who she is. She's the most kindest, sweetest person in the world. And we've always had a great relationship. But I don't know. I that's what I expected. And so hearing those words, I was like, okay. And I came home, and she met me at the garage door, and she's laughing at me, and she's holding my stomach. She's like, "Oh, my peanuts, my little peanuts." And I just remember crying to her, and she was like, "It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay." And we sat down and talked. And in that moment, I absolutely knew what my decision was going to be. I was going to keep my peanuts. And, we end up talking, and, I end up telling her about my first abortion. And she was like, we cried more because she's like, my response would have been the exact same. And I felt so much love, like, and I had never been more excited to be pregnant. The next day we went to go get prenatal vitamins, and I had stopped drinking. From that point on, I completely stopped drinking. And I was just so grateful for my mom in that moment, who just showed me God's love, really, truly,
Mm.
in that moment where I was about to make a really, really bad decision, really, really bad decision.
And the thing that's amazing is it shows the character of God, right? Through your mom, that he's always
Yeah.
there. He was
Yeah.
always there, and he will always freely forgive and freely provide mercy, and we just have to seek and ask, right? And it shows that beautifully because, your mom being such a devout Christian,
Yeah.
she exudes that, right? And the world tells us that our parents will hate us. The world tells us that everybody will put us down and make us lower than we are because we have a child early, or because we have a family early, or because you're in an unfortunate circumstance. But God doesn't see it that way. Your family never saw it that way. It was only what the world was telling you in your heart, and
Yeah.
that's what you believed in. But what a beautiful kind of twist to that story.